to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next is the approval of the agenda. Before we do that, I'd like to make a change under new business. I'd like to move what's listed as C, Business and Financial Affairs, the District Financial Report for October 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019. I'd like to make that item A and move the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget to C. With the change, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended, I guess?
Make the motion to approve the agenda as changed.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Approval of consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Any discussion?
I'll second.
Just in the minutes to make a change when the board went into executive session that I was invited in as well.
Okay. And I don't have my copy of the minutes
It's
printed out.
Yeah. I'll make a note.
third from the last paragraph.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get that? Just that one change to the December 9th minutes?
You all right, Nance? Keep that back on.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, consent agenda is approved. Next is audience of citizens. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address a board, we welcome you to do so. I just want to make sure everyone is familiar with our policy. We do welcome public comment. However, we don't engage in a back and forth conversation with members of the public who come to speak. We take everything under advisement that's directed to us at the meetings. So we welcome you to comment. If you want to come up, state your name and your address for us, and love to hear from you. Thank you for coming.
Hi, I'm Megan O'Brien. I live on 42 Indian Hill Avenue. I am here because the budget season is upon us, and I'd like to request that you all consider adding a behavioral support program to all of our schools. We have all heard about the increase in extreme behavior nationwide, and it is not something that Portland hasn't had to deal with. I do think we are at a critical time because extreme behaviors are on the rise with each passing year. It is not getting better, and it will not go away. So we need to be proactive and create a program that will best serve our students who are struggling with their emotions and behavior. I would like to see a program in each school that includes specialized programming based on individual student needs, using FBAs and BIPs created and monitored frequently. A BCBA would work closely with these programs in addition to social workers. The programs are given a space so that when students are having a difficult time regulating their emotions and behavior, they will have a consistent, safe, and private space to go. If we create our own program, we can keep these children within our district so that they are still receiving strong academic instruction, they are still with their peers when they are able, and they wouldn't need to transition back and forth between placements. It would allow for more fluidity based on their needs at the time. I think it's incredibly important that this program begin at the youngest level so that students are given appropriate supports from the beginning of their schooling, and they have the tools to be successful as they move through the grades. We also need to consider the bystanders who suffer when they are faced with extreme behaviors on a daily basis. We need to be sure that we are putting programs in place so the bystanders do not suffer while the other students are learning to cope and regulate themselves. While new programs cost money, it is far less expensive in the long run. Outplacement is ridiculously expensive, and if we create a strong program in Portland, we can save everyone in the long run, especially our children who need it most.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board? Okay. Student representative report.
Good evening.
Hello.
I'd like to start, well, I have to really start my report by talking about last night's showcase night here at the high school. I participated as part of a panel talking about school climate and school culture, and from my end, I thought it was a big success. A lot of other student volunteers took the time out of their night to come talk on a wide range of topics, from climate like I did, to technology and extracurriculars in our school. and provided a really extensive look at Portland High School for future students looking to come next year. So that was a great way to get the students involved in the process and give them their voice there. Moving into some winter sports, our basketball teams, the girls are currently at a 2-3 record, while the boys are at a 2-2, so they're doing pretty well for the beginning of the season. Wrestling's at a impressive 5-3 record, and while I couldn't find a lot of information on indoor track, I'm sure that Coach K is working hard for their next meet. It's been a relatively slow time at Portland High School since we got back from break, although midterms are on the horizon. Those are starting in about 2 weeks, so everyone's getting down to studying for those in earnest, I can assure you. And I did want to mention one last thing. With our school Chromebooks, recently it's been brought to my attention, and I've noticed, and some of my peers have noticed, that the restrictions seem to be getting a little more tight, especially with YouTube, which is understandable. There's a very limited selection of videos. I believe only those that fall under the category of education seem to be available to us students, and that can cause some trouble in class. Today in my government class, we tried to view a video on Martin Luther King that was, blocked from the Chromebook, so Mrs. Stoller put in a request to go through that. The censoring, in my opinion, seems to be almost too good at its job, and while I wasn't sure if this was a board issue, I thought it was at least worth a mention. And that's my report.
Thank you. Okay, communication and updates.
So, I want, as a matter of record, and they become a matter of record, letters that have been sent to the board. There's a letter from Cindy Mazzara relative to a middle school incident. There is another one from Cindy Hickey relative to the same middle school incident. And then Megan O'Brien sent an email, and she's here tonight, somewhat related topic to what she spoke about tonight. But those become a part of the public record because they were correspondence to the board. Okay, so I'm going to pass those on. I have just one item. Actually, I want to echo what Justin said relative to last night, because Kate's here and she did a really lovely job. This is a program that over her 5 years of time, 5 years of being principal here, has evolved considerably. And last night, Showcase was a real increase, a step up, if you will, and a real opportunity to engage our existing staff and our existing students to help incoming parents better understand what we have to offer. And I happened to go to 2 of the breakout sessions, and the ability for these young men and women to articulate so clearly what they're learning, what they like, what they don't like, what is so special about this particular school is just very enlightening to me. And so I commend all of the people who took part in this, but most especially Kate and her efforts to have that happen. The other thing is the vision of the graduate. You should have received a copy of some things that I sent out to the general public. I sent 2 different pieces of information out to the school family, if you will. One piece of information to the staff, one piece of information to parents. I'll clarify that if you want.
Okay.
If that,
She just asked
Yeah,
if I
she
sent
didn't
it
want
back
them.
around
Oh.
for people to look at if
Okay.
they wanted.
Yeah.
She wanted me to say.
no, it goes in the public
That's what I
record.
thought, yeah, that's what I thought.
Sorry. So, staff, I've made an outreach to staff, I've made an outreach to our families, and then subsequently have made an outreach to a number of community organizations and to our students. So things have picked up considerably. So don't look at the timeline that I created back in the fall. I'm not following it, but the goal is obviously to get this thing completed before I leave, and well before I leave. And it's an exciting opportunity and an exciting, as I prepared for my first endeavor on Thursday, I get reinvigorated about this opportunity to really seek people's thoughts about the future of this school and our school district, the entire school district. I'm meeting with postgraduates on Thursday. I'm quite excited about doing that. I have tentatively planned a meeting. I'm trying to seek a meeting with the Student Senate. I have a meeting with the Exchange Club in a couple of weeks. I have probably at least 15 parents who want to participate, and I have at least 10 staff members, teachers and staff members who want to participate. So that's very exciting for me. So we're well underway. I have a scheduled meeting with the Board of Selectmen two Wednesdays. No, is it next Wednesday? It is next Wednesday. A week from tomorrow, I have a scheduled meeting. And should any board member want to attend, no more than 3, because we don't want to make it a quorum, just let me know. And I'd love to have you assist me. I think that would be great in the process.
So that's the 15th?
Yeah, it is the
January 15th?
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to talk about.
Okay. New business. We'll go to new number A, District Financial Report, October 1st through December 31st.
You all received my memo. I did it a little differently this time, including some projects that we completed throughout the first half of the year, combining the special education with tuition, because those accounts all kind of flow together, and go with our excess reimbursement. So I kind of just grouped those together because it's kind of easier to see that way. And really, we're in pretty good shape. We got the $80,000 now from the supplemental appropriation, with a piece of that going now to the Valley View boiler that went down. So that's a piece of that. So if anybody has any questions.
So let's stop there and pause relative to that, so you're more clear at what we have done. And this will get to your question relative to the number and the implication in terms of the budget. So we have a supplemental appropriation that comes from the $80,000 tuition payment that we're receiving from Oak Hill School. The Board of Selectmen has voted to supplementally provide you with that. So our budget actually increases by $80,000, and we put it in that line. And what she's saying is, it's there now. You know, it's there in black and white. So we're really happy with that. And given the concerns that we have at each of our schools, and unfortunately Valley View schools, there's 3 different projects that we want to get completed, and want to use at least part of that money for these 3 different projects. We have ongoing roof issues, we have a boiler that's failed, and we had some vents cleaned that we felt needed to have happen. So it came at a very good time.
So is that where it's going to be allocated when we get the next payment as well? Because we've only gotten half so far, correct?
We've got 40 of the 80,000, but they supplemental appropriate the full amount to us.
Oh, okay.
Physically, the town has received only half of the money,
Right, but
but
we've
we've
gotten
been
the full.
appropriated the entire
Okay.
thing.
So is that the account
For
just for this
003.
fiscal year we're intending to put that, or is that gonna be the plan? Or is there a plan moving forward, I guess is the question.
I think we agreed last time that it would be at least for this year to go towards that.
Okay,
But your budget has that money budgeted into its line, because it's an appropriation. So it becomes part of that particular line, and it is incorporated into your budget, so you already have that money allocated for that place. Now, you may decide as a board, that's not where you want it, but that's where it is. It is in that particular line, in our funding request
For the
new budget.
budget, so we wouldn't have to go for a supplemental.
It's
next. Okay.
in perpetuity. The thing that you need to remember is that I'm gonna be negotiating a new contract every year with them. And based on my past experience, it's a nice little bump each year. And so over a period of time, it's a considerable amount of money. And so you wanna make sure that there's some mechanism for you, if we do get an increase every year, and I expect that we will, I will negotiate one from Oak Hill, that you get that money. Right.
The bleacher repairs, is that the project to put in the automated electronic open and close, or is that something different?
Carl could probably talk more to what the bleachers, what got done with the bleachers.
So, I think that was like $11,000, Tim, right?
We weren't given any numbers. We were
Okay,
only
so
given-
what we did is we had all of the
Less
bleachers,
on here somewhere.
It's included in the amount.
we had all the bleachers gone through, they've never been done. They were not opening and closing properly.
Right, yeah.
So after this company came in, repaired all the broken pieces and everything underneath, right now, we don't need to automate them.
Oh.
Because a couple people can just pick them up
They should move pretty easily, yeah.
and they slide right out.
Oh, good.
So hopefully, and that's something that should be being done every couple of years that probably won't be to that magnitude with money.
Yeah.
But the high school ones are the ones that were in the most need of repair. The middle school ones do not move out, in and out daily like those do.
Right.
Like after that game tonight,
Oh.
those will be all closed up for tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So that's,
Oh, good.
okay. So they did in that also repair the middle school and serviced them and got those done also.
Oh, excellent.
So if it stays that way, we do not need to automate them,
Oh, excellent, yeah.
okay?
Thank you.
Can I back up with a question about the Oak Hill lane, just because this came up at the Board of Selectmen meeting. A couple of the selectmen were asking whether there was any consideration about negotiating longer-term contracts in the future, 3-year or 5-year, and what the benefit would be of that. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
The board chair did mention that to me when we had our pre-board meeting. And my response is that I've negotiated with them in the past, in my previous position, for 9 years. And I never had a problem. And it was a standard agreement that we would make every spring, and we would move forward. And there was never any challenge to my request for an increase. So, again, that power is in your hands. You direct me to negotiate a longer-term contract. I don't think it's in our best interest, because in case we need to have the space, or in case there's
Yeah.
some particular issue or something we didn't expect, but I just want to say that I've always had really positive negotiations with them.
And your experience is that they don't necessarily move from town to town to town, they
No,
kind
no,
of get
no,
entrenched
no.
somewhere and.
No, so 9 years in New Hartford, and they're still there, so that's 9 plus 6 is 15 years, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Looking at the paragraph after the repairs and maintenance, talking about the deficit in tuition to LEAs, tuition to private sources, and student transportation. Looks like there'll still be a deficit of about 100,000 after the excess cost, or the preliminary reimbursement, excess cost mission.
And that's a preliminary. We could end up getting more. I don't think we'll get less. But again, things could change in the next 6 months. We could get somebody that comes back, and that would help with that $100,000. It's just the ever-changing student services area.
So does that deficit include encumbered funds, or is it just
Yes.
spent?
Yep.
Oh, it's encumbered
It's
also.
encumbered too.
Okay.
And the biggest thing, with that area is hopefully I'll know by the end of the month what the excess cost will be, so I can report back more on that. Cause I believe that we'll get a little bit more.
So if a student ends up coming back into the system, the encumbered amount changes
Goes like,
then?
yep.
Okay.
Yep. Right now, everything, as far as I believe, has been encumbered for all of our students, right, Dawn?
Everything's encumbered for our current placement costs.
So that's pretty much what you anticipate as of today through the end of the year. It's already,
There was some, after the last budget was, after the budget was approved, there was some movements. We had a student that came back from district, another student that moved out of district, and we had 2 students that were added to the budget that were outplaced after the budget was finalized. So, which could be about 200,000, it's only about 100,000 because of the way things settled out with other movements.
okay, good.
Quick question on the repairs and maintenance. Carl might know this.
I know we boiler, roofing, and all these, how much are the unexpected projects totaling? In other words, the ones we didn't think we're gonna have to spend money on. Is that eating the whole 80,000?
I mean, it's eating the whole budget that we even have, plus the 80,000.
Oh,
I mean, there's been we're plugging away at things that have needed to be repaired for a long time now, and I think we're doing really good with it. The 80,000 definitely helps with that. You know, we just kinda gotta move forward, and as year to year, it's definitely better than it was last year. Cause we fixed a lot of things last year too. It's just a lot of things that a lot of people don't see, cause it's the little things.
I guess where I'm going was the unforeseen more than we got in, and are we gonna need to be more next year when we budget because
I think that's
we're
right.
under?
It's hard, honestly, it's hard to say. You don't know if another boiler's gonna go down. You could budget for it, it may not get approved.
Carl thinks very strongly that the first one went down, that the second one's gonna be soon to follow. They're the same age, we're relatively the same age.
And those are high ticket items. If we have $160,000 repairs and maintenance line,
Yeah,
The insurance company inspected both of those boilers, and the second boiler is not very far behind the first one. So that's already showing the same sign. So I was hoping to attempt to, in the off heatings, if that one gets, we get this new one in, and then in the off season, if possible, we replace number one boiler.
And right now, that's not budgeted in, but unless it's in Fund 11.
it's in the Fund 11 for
Fund 11,
2021, but
yeah.
that's the only Fund 11.
So, and Fund 11 is funded by two sources, one by us, and one by the Board of Selectmen, $40,000 annually. So, but it's not in the operational budget.
Dave, as we speak, I have our HVAC company inspecting those at Gildersleeve and Brownstone and
So to answer your question, it's hard to say.
yeah, I'm just kinda looking at, Dave, did we spend 100,000 that we didn't expect to on emergencies, and we got in 80, so really, we were not ahead?
There's been a lot of roofing issues, there's been a lot with the limestone pits that we had to do, that was very unexpected. But now we know, you know, going forward to
Yeah.
plan for it. But this year, you know, those things kinda hit us.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
I just think it's interesting to see how we're so precise, so close in the percentage of usage at this point. Last fiscal year and this fiscal year, it just shows a lot of consistency. Thank you for the.
Did you just jinx us?
Don't wanna say I didn't do anything.
Any questions, comments? Okay, next is the preliminary 2020-2021 budget timetable.
Just, this is the timetable that the town puts out. It's a busy time period. I encourage people in the audience and the general public to be well aware of this process, this budget process. It doesn't end with the board approving the board's budget. It continues to a town meeting, or a town hearing on St. Patrick's Day, which is usually attended by just officials. And it would be great to have the public there to hear what each budget, both the town and our budget, has ended up. And then the budget workshops that occur in March and April, with the ultimate referendum on May 11th, on Monday, May 11th. So I did send out something to the staff, and I sent out something to our parents, so they're aware of the timeframes of the budget.
Okay, and if you could just remind everyone, our remaining budget meetings prior to when we're due to submit our budget to the first selectwoman. We have tonight and next Wednesday, and
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday and
Tuesday.
Thursday.
and Thursday.
And
Okay.
Thursday if necessary.
All right, just so everyone remembers. All right, next is the superintendent's proposed fiscal year 2021 budget.
First, let me, because we have members in this, or our community members in the audience, the entire budget, and this is a little bit of a break from, different from the past, we usually just gave you the summary. The entire budget, what the board gets, is on the table. It is not in color, it is in black and white, but if you haven't received it, you may want to, because it will detail all the things that we will discuss tonight and in the coming days. I thought we would do this a little bit differently. Usually we skip to the budget summary. Stephanie puts a lot of effort into this. We spend a lot of time trying to provide you with the information that we think you will need to make a decision about this particular budget. And so I want Stephanie to walk us through each section, just quickly to highlight each section so that you see what's up, what information we have provided for you. Then, if it's okay with you, I'd like to go back to the very beginning and just stop and pause and wait to see if you have any questions about each section. Does that work? Just a slow walk through this. All right? Okay? All right. All right, Stephanie.
So, executive summary, superintendent's letter.
So in the executive summary, we just provided you with some background, I provided you with some background on how this budget is different from previous years.
And you have the list of administration, the board members, organizational chart.
It changes every year. That's been updated in your policy.
So the first section is the budget summary, and this is basically the high level, all of the accounts rolled in by object into one. The rest are all the breakdowns. There's different ways of doing it. You can look at it. If you look on page 6, it highlights a few of the areas that go into that piece, which will then be broken down in the next sections. But these are the main drivers for part of that. And I added in a piece, a rationale for any account with an increase over 5%, and I added a section in the notes tab that will show, kind of explain why. And thinking about it now, I don't know, and I don't know if it would be helpful even if I have negative ones, if that would be helpful to see why we have a negative and not just a positive,
Yes.
that are under. I was thinking about that after I did it, so for next time. So that piece will be in your last section of the notes. And I tried to explain the best as I can, how it came to about. The next section is the location budgets, which basically are all your schools. We allow a set per pupil amount. I raised it $5 this year for each student. So then this is what's given to the principals, and they come back and give me what they want to spend their money on. I asked them this year for budget backup sheets, for the explanations and justifications as to why they were putting in for what they were putting in for. It helps me now with my projections and what I'm doing throughout the year. So that's the section on location. Student services. Student services is Dawn's section. She gives me a great colored sheet of breakdown of by student, coding. She adds it all up. She has the excess cost in the bottom right-hand side and how it correlates to the costs, and it's net of excess costs, so you would add back in the amount, and that's what the total cost would be for the district. So that's Dawn's piece.
That's page 18.
Yes.
She also spends some time creating a narrative so that you better understand what has changed or what she's proposing to change for her budget. It is a sizable part of your budget. So so it's important that we do break it down for you and you understand it, but it's over 10% of the budget.
15.62%. And if you think about your salaries and benefits are about 3/4 of it, so you add in 15%, that doesn't leave much left. I tried to do that in larger sections too, do a breakdown of, you know, what the percentage is for the budget. Other student services, vocational agriculture, adult ed, athletics, student activities, transportation, and food service. These are part of the other student services. Student activities is location, basically by the schools. Transportations are district transportation, and the district adult ed and the vocational agricultural. And the athletics is page 22, where I have a breakdown of their costs, and that's middle school and high school combined together. And district-wide,
Begins on page 24.
is curriculum, technology, board of ed services, central administration, and building administration. Central administration is central office, building administration are the schools, their main office. Technology, because it's such a large piece, they're actually broken out on page 26 and 27, where Charles also gives a nice colored sheet of his costs, lists out what each cost is made up of. And he has a nice little narrative up in his section as well. And a part of that also is the employee benefits, and because they're also so large, they have their own section with their own write-up, explaining that piece. Next is facilities. The first section is the buildings and grounds, which is comes to Carl's area. This does include the supplemental appropriation in there. So where you see under 44003, it's showing a negative 121,200. So it's saying it's a decrease. It really is only 41,200 if you take out that 80. If we didn't have the 80, it would really only be 41,200. So you kind of have to keep that in perspective when you're thinking about it. Also added into this year's budget are new soccer goals that are needed, because we usually don't have an equipment line. So they're much needed. You'll probably be seeing that now for the next 4 years, because we're kind of trying to keep it on a rotation, replacing a set a year. We also need to purchase heating oil for the middle school and high school. We budgeted about 5,000 gallons to add what's in there now, but it was not done for this year, so it's much needed as well. So that's a kind of a new addition to that as well. 33 and 34 is the capital plan. The purple section is currently where we're doing right now. The pink will be for 2021, what we're proposing, and then the 5-year plan are the columns after that.
And just so you know, there are 3 different funding mechanisms that are represented here. You have your operational account, you have your Fund 11, and you have your capital account.
So you'll see a mixture of different things.
So look at the top, it identifies which account we are saying that it may come from.
I'm gonna ask an off-the-cuff question here. When's the presentation to the Pounds Capital Commission?
I don't think that's, oh, wait a minute, is that in the proposed calendar?
Yes, there was,
It may be.
I don't know if it's exactly, but he said there is a,
Yeah, it's not,
No.
it's not there yet. I'll let the board know, but I don't know yet.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yep.
Well, I thought about it.
In statistical data, it's just the enrollment as of December. We put in the birth totals because that showed with the increase in the kindergarten classes, with what we're dealing with for this year. And then the net current expenditure per pupil, we provided this last year as well. Ours did increase. We were 15,482 last year, and we're now 16,101. We're still way below the average. But this comes off of our, the EF, that big report that I do for the state, in September, that they calculate that from. And the appendix just is some definitions, and also includes our grants. for this year, are
That's
anticipated.
a really important one.
There's a few changes for this year. Our Title I is increased, so that helps us out a lot.
Open choices,
Open choice is increased.
A, appendix 3, it's on the right-hand side, under appendix.
And we're hoping that Medicaid will increase because there's a new, I don't know if it's a new way, but it's, we're now following along with, so Medicaid, to get reimbursed, it's gotta be purchase services. In the past, we've always budgeted through tuition, by tuition charges, so we could never claim if somebody has PTOT services that can be Medicaid claimed, we were building it all into our tuition. So I don't know if it was a legislature, something came out this year where they're basically making all outplaced agencies do contracts with the school districts, listing out all the services so that now we can split out these charges, and now, you know, we were billing everything tuition, we could have $60,000 now in services that we can claim Medicaid on. So we're hoping that will help too. We'll get a better idea this year, well, next year, because the cost report will be for next year, but it in our benefit to do it this way, so, and that's why there's a change too in the purchase services for 2021, because we budgeted it that way going forward, and so we budgeted in 3030 instead of tuition. And then the last one is the notes page we just added, and I just wanted to include where we started, when we started doing this back in November, we were at a 6.33, and we knew that wasn't going to be acceptable. So,
That's a question that you always seem to have, and so this year we thought we'd just throw it in there so you knew that, you know, we spend a considerable amount of time cutting 2% off of this budget proposal.
If we
And
wanted-
it's not easy. Believe me, it's not easy.
and so I included everything that we basically cut out to get down to our 4.46 proposed budget. And then the last one is my rationale, for the over 5%.
So any line that was over 5%.
In the executive, in the budget summary section.
Nice.
Yeah, very good.
All right, let's go back. Anybody have any questions about the letter that I wrote? It's just a very high-level summary of what this budget contains.
One question that it brought to me was, so at some point as we go through here, I wanted to get an understanding of the number. You talk about increasing paraprofessionals in each of the schools.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, what's that number? We're gonna go from, you know, FTE X to Y. And
Tim, if I had a document, I could tell you it right now, but we
Yeah,
have
no,
it. We have it. I know
Yeah.
we have it, and we'll make sure you have it next week.
yeah, no,
All
I'm
right.
sure you do, yeah.
Yep. Unfortunately, it has grown significantly.
I just didn't get a chance to do questions in advance, so I'll pass through.
All right. The big one is the budget summary.
On the, I have a question on the organizational part. And this may be older. At some point, I thought the director of athletics, phys ed, was overseeing nurses, but that's not the case. It falls under, the student services now, is that right? Has that always been, or is that something that changed in the last year or so?
No, I think that's always been that way.
It's been that way since I was.
Yeah, okay.
Ready to move to the summary? All right. Questions?
I have a question. I'm wondering what is causing the increase in tutor salaries? It's a 150% increase over last year.
It's 150, but it's going from 10 to 25, so it's $15,000. A lot of it is on the student services side.
Yeah, it's typically, tutors are required if the student's out sick, homebound. Also, if the student is, we're required by law, student is expelled, we have to provide some kind of educational component, and that's typically where that goes. And if the child's not going into a specialized program, then homebound tutoring is, or, you know, community-based tutoring is part of that. But like Stephanie said, it's not a large amount to begin with, but we
1819.
Right.
We really killed that line.
We all done tomorrow?
Yeah, thank you.
With the number of retirements, I was just looking at the list from the last meeting, there was a number, I could count like 8, and I knew there were other ones before that. So when you're doing this budget and you're looking at the certified salaries and non-certified salaries, some of these are, it's in anticipating replacing all those retiring people. So you're using a placeholder amount,
Yes,
like that mid,
57,000.
the 57,000?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
It's the M6 of the teacher's salary schedule.
And how, when you're looking at that large of a group, is that, you think in terms of an average, that's gonna come up to be pretty realistic? I know it's hard, right?
She's always on me about higher placement of teachers, which well,
We appreciate
we
that.
try to hire the best.
Right, yeah.
And so, sometimes we do hire people at the other end, and, but it really does balance.
But it does, yeah, that's
It
what
really does balance.
Just
It's
with that line
amazing,
item.
when if you looked at it in the fall, maybe it would be tiered toward,
Yeah.
the higher end,
Right.
but when you get to the end of your budget year and some teachers that have left, middle of the year, you probably start somebody at the lower end and it goes the other way. So it balances. You said 8 retirements. That's not our number of retirements.
It's more or less than that?
Less, it's fewer than that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I wanna say, principals help me, 4, 5?
4 teachers. 3 or 4. 3 or 4.
3.
There were a
Yeah.
couple resignations.
Oh, maybe I added in the
If
resignation.
you were adding in some
Yeah, that may have been the
resignations.
case.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, but that's one of the.
Yep, but that's how we do it.
These numbers reflect that anticipation of
Right.
what you might be able to fill out.
And I just wanted to add in that, so the salary section, it's normal contractual increases that are guaranteed.
Right.
We added back in the 5th grade position. We added in a 1st grade position to go along with the kindergarten class, so that'll be a new position. And we added back in the coaching extracurriculars that were cut in 1920, added those back in. And also the paras that were added in this year, we added them officially into the budget next year as well. So that's what makes up that piece of it.
Can you mind just repeating that again, as far as which salaries you said you added in, a grade 5 position, a grade 1? That, and then coaching, and did I miss something?
Extracurricular, those positions that we cut last year to
Yeah, yeah,
balance,
yeah.
we added those back in.
Technically
stipends.
speaking,
Yes.
yeah.
There were some stipends that were.
Yeah, the stipends.
We do. I was just thinking in terms of like, and we'll get, I don't know, within some of the softball.
Right, so that falls under
Because there
the
weren't enough
coaching.
people to play softball, but is there an anticipation I thought they weren't able to, they didn't really have enough interest in it. That was the way I remember it. So is
I don't know
interest
if-
been?
I don't know if we added back softball.
Yeah,
I don't think.
well, you said it in here somewhere, you did.
I can check,
Middle school softball, I think it was.
Oh,
Yes, there was a note about that.
Yeah, there was a note about that. I remember, thank you.
No, you're right.
we'll go back on
Nothing
that.
against softball, I was just curious, because you're looking at,
Your question is, has it really been added?
What's been?
well, I'm assuming it has been, I'm just curious what the consideration was, if it was removed because there wasn't any interest and they weren't able to fill the team, so you were.
Right.
I wanna believe it was not, cause he did not have any increase other than adding back in the assistant wrestling coach. That was the only change in his budget, so I
During this
for
fiscal year.
2021. No, for 2021. So he didn't change, so that's why I wanna say that the middle school softball is now, but I can check.
We'll check it for you.
Okay.
But just to be clear there, the increase in salaries is only adding in 2 full-time teaching positions. We're not expanding any programs or,
Oh,
you know
no,
what I'm saying?
no, there are other teachers added to this.
Okay, that's.
So you got your ESL, halftime ESL teacher.
Right.
And then you have, for our new special education program, you also have some additional staff. I don't wanna misspeak, so I'm gonna make sure that.
Teaching staff.
Teaching
Not
staff,
just, yeah.
teaching staff,
Okay.
or clinician staff.
Right.
I don't think it is a teacher, it's a it's a certified position.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
That's covered under the grant piece.
But, yeah.
Sorry, can you break that down
Yeah.
again? For the Wheeler, we're talking about the expansion of the Wheeler Clinic partnership to the elementary level, is that
Right.
correct? And
Right.
you're saying that the new positions that we're adding for that will be covered by grant?
By the grants.
Okay.
in both cases though,
The
Stephanie?
clinician, yes. The pairs, I think we were gonna try and,
But how about the teacher? We're reallocating
Yeah,
the teacher
right, we're-
from the existing,
right,
but it's still ours.
Right.
It's funded by you, the Board of Education.
Okay,
Oh,
All right.
Okay.
so it's not a new position.
Right.
okay.
So that's like 2.5, if we count the ESL.
ESL is technically in there now.
Right. And budgeted for the next year. We adopted it for this current year.
Right.
Putting back that fifth grade position we cut and adding.
First grade.
And then adding in the 6 or 7 paras.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's under non-certified.
Right,
So 6 or 7 pairs, you think?
I believe it was,
I have to look at the
Yeah.
chart.
Okay.
So, just for our understanding and for anyone who might not be familiar with the Wheeler Clinic program that we're looking to expand to the elementary level, can you break down for us how many positions we will be hiring for that, and how many of our students you imagine will be served? And maybe talk a little bit about
Sure.
where we might see other cost savings?
I'm gonna pass this out, Dawn. I asked Dawn to
Yeah.
prepare something for you, because I
Awesome.
anticipated that.
Thank you.
But, so, pass it on.
this is gonna be,
She's gonna make it.
Okay.
Or what?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
There's also some extra copies for the public there as well on the table. So as an administrative team and a central office team, we've been looking at how to best program for our students with social emotional needs at the K-6 level. For those of you that were on the board a couple years ago when we brought on the Wheeler Clinic program, we had initially explored making it a kindergarten through 12th grade program and housing, the secondary kids at the secondary and one of the secondary schools and then an elementary program. But it was a huge undertaking. It was double what we were able to spend on it at that point. So we did just start with the high school because that was where our biggest impact was with high school, middle school, the 7-12 program. But as you know, you've been hearing me speak all last year and the beginning of this year as well on our needs for our social emotional support for our students that are in the K-6 setting. And especially to have that alternate setting, that safe place to go that's designed for a student that needs help de-escalating, desensitization, any of those social emotional needs that need to be supported. It can't just be a closet that's an afterthought. And I know our principals and our teachers have really worked hard to create that in all 3 elementary schools, but we're really committed to creating a standalone therapeutic day program. And that's what's laid out here. And I'm going to caution us, and I'm not going to say it's an extension of the Wheeler collaborative learning program, just because we're looking at a couple different options. Of course, one option is to contract with Wheeler, have it be a purchase service, just like we do for our 7-12 program. They bring in the clinician, they bring in the clinical oversight, and we supply all the educational programming. It's really, I think, in our best interest to make sure that we're building the capacity within district. And while we'll need some clinical oversight for a clinician of that higher level of need, or higher level of care, at the same time, being able to build our own capacity and build our own programming in district. So we have some different options that we are exploring. Some of the, like Wheeler Clinic is definitely an option, but there's other options out there as well that we're exploring. I know, for example, Ms. Hines is going tomorrow to go look at another district's program, and just to, she's going armed with a list of questions and eager to have ideas and to be able to bring that back. And we're continuing to look at and work with other districts that have similar programming that's successful, including the district where we have 2 of our own young people placed right now in East Hampton. So what we have here in this paperwork and that we handed out is just, outlining what a therapeutic day program is. It's a smaller program. It's for students with significant social and emotional needs. It's not a timeout room. It's not an in-school suspension room. It's a true therapeutic program. Focus for most of these kids first has to be on mental health and well-being. And then we can think about academics and living within the guidelines of the school rules and everything else. It's just like, I just came back to work today. I've been out for a couple of weeks. I had a knee replacement. My focus today was not 100% on my job that was at my desk. Part of my focus was making sure I could navigate the stairs and the elevator and things like that. My needs today were presenting a little bit different than they typically do. And that's what happens with our kids with social emotional needs. They come in and they're not ready to think about a reading activity or the math activity that's coming out in Bridges, or going to the PE class and taking part in that loud, crazy room with all the things going on taking place in a physical activity. They're not able to access that right now, and that's what we have to focus on. And that's the focus of a therapeutic day program. It's highly individualized. It's based upon the individual student's needs, so we don't create a square hole and try and fit all of our little round pegs into that square hole. We create the program around the needs. That part, and it is a special ed program. It is very restricted. It's time away from non-disabled peers, and it is IEP driven. And it's staffed by appropriate clinical and academic personnel who are trained in supporting social emotional needs and using evidence-based practices. For example, our Wheeler Clinic program is highly built up into the therapeutic model of supporting students that have trauma-based issues. And it's just a child-centered approach. Again, it's not taking a closet and recreating a little quiet place for a child to go. It's really creating a program for students. Why is it being proposed? The evidence is out there. We've had kids that are having difficulties in all of our elementary schools. Regulation, coming to school ready to be able to deal with the stimuli, the social emotional and the academic and everything else. We have some kids that really don't have those skills yet and really need the extra help. We began with the Wheeler Clinic, as I said earlier, at the secondary level because our numbers were higher there. But it doesn't mean that our numbers at the elementary level have not continued to grow. We've had significant needs. All of our principals, myself, Dr. Britton, we spend a lot of time making sure that, working with our kids that are dysregulated. But right now it feels like a Band-Aid approach. So we have a boo-boo pop-up, we deal with it, and then we move on. But the idea is to be proactive.
Can we address Laurel's question specifically in terms of the numbers?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Right now, we have. I looked for feedback from all three elementary principals. We have 18 students right now that are earmarked possibly to be in this program, that would benefit from this program. Out of those 18 students, we have. I think I have this number. I'll make sure I have an. We have 10 students that would be fit right into the program immediately, and then the other 8 would be what we call getting some resource support, or maybe part-time in there, or working with the clinician. Do I have that backwards?
Well, you have the number at 18, it's 17.
17.
We fixed it this afternoon. So it's 10 full-time programmatic students, and then 7 as a resource.
Right, thank you, Dr.
A couple
Riley.
of those are, or one of them is a return of a student who is receiving services outside of our district now.
Right.
And 2 of those are students who, if we didn't have this program, would likely be transitioned out of our school district now.
Yeah, we've got some
that's an
kids with,
important fact.
we've got kiddos that are leaving here an hour or 2 before school ends to go to a partial hospitalization program or an intensive outpatient program for mental health, and they spend from 1 o'clock until 6 o'clock at places like Natchog Hospital or Rushford or things like that, because their social emotional needs are so intense. So you take somebody with that kind of need, and yet we expect them to be able to fit into a regular gen ed classroom without significant supports. And our teams have done a beautiful job. I really applaud every principal and all of our special ed teachers, para-educators, and classroom teachers. They're doing an excellent job, but we need more. We need highly specialized programming. Laurel, does that answer your question as far as numbers?
Yes, thank you.
I know we had a parent speak at the beginning of the meeting and talking about a program in every school. One of the issues that we're looking at right now is we have more space at Brownstone to develop a program that is a couple of classrooms together. And that is kind of the model that we're looking at right now, also knowing that we do have the Portland little bus that we can use to transport kiddos if they're going to go back to their regular school for certain periods of the day with their paraeducator, because they're able to be in a hybrid program, part-time in the therapeutic day and part-time in their regular classroom. I'd love to think that we had, it's at least a 2-classroom layout. You really need something for academics and you need something for the therapeutic. And just to be able to break kids apart, work in small groups, work with a paraeducator or a clinician, all of those types of things really need more than just a classroom. And at Gildersleeve and Valley View, we're just too tight for space right now.
But any increase in population of students who require this support by IEP, we might have to consider that in the future. So it's not as if we're taking that option off the table. The program would likely shift at times depending on where our need is, and it may expand at any given time because of the population of students.
Is the greatest need currently at Brownstone, or is it pretty evenly spaced between the 3 elementary schools?
It's evenly spaced. Yeah, the only difference is when Allison gave me her students, half of the students she gave me will be transitioning to the middle school. So those students would be eligible to be in the Wheeler Collaborative Learning Program if they continue to need that level of care. But there's every principal gave me a nice healthy number. And the other thing I have to point out is we have 6 kids in the kindergarten level at Valley View that are candidates for this program. And of those 6 kids, we didn't know most of them before school started in the fall. We're talking about kids that just walk in our door, and we realize we have to have really specialized programming for them. And if we can have that from the get-go versus having them experience failure and frustration and parents feeling that failure and frustration and their classmates being subject to lots of disruptions and what's already a scary part of beginning school, we can be much more proactive like that. But we didn't even know, those kids weren't even on my radar. So I can't even, just like I can speak to Allison's 6 that are going to the middle school, I can't speak to who's coming in kindergarten. So we go on. I just went on to outline some of the, the space, the leadership team, just like the program at the middle school, high school. It's overseen by a combination of myself and the building principals. With the Wheeler Clinic, we also have a supervisor from Wheeler Clinic that also works with us. But the leadership team would be oversight by the 3 principals as well as myself. And Charles does a great job too, lending to us because he brings in that curriculum piece that's so helpful when we're planning alternate programming. And staffing is special education teachers, and we spoke a little bit earlier about a possible reallocation based upon some of our numbers for special education teachers, but the clinician is the big part, and it has to be a clinician that's able to speak to that higher level of care. Just like the clinicians that we're graced with 2 excellent clinicians in the Wheeler Clinic program, and they're just top notch. But the biggest area too there is that we have to think about making sure that we have clinical oversight and clinical support. None of us are highly trained in clinical support as administrators. We're great with education and with your typical special education, but when we talk about this type of need. In addition, we are contracting with BCBAs. We're working with CREC on that. We're working hard to build our capacity within our own mental health team to build the ability to collect data and create appropriate behavior plans. So we would continue that model as well as far as the therapeutic program.
So, Dawn, just on that point, in terms of the clinical oversight, that would be an additional cost, even if we go with the model of developing this in our own, not have a totally collaborative thing with Wheeler. You'd still be looking to have Wheeler provide the clinical oversight for the program?
Either Wheeler or another appropriate agency.
So that would be another cost.
Right,
in
and that
addition
could,
to
that
the
could, that
staff.
could come out of the IDEA grant.
We did put it in the operational budget. We assumed that it would come out of her IDEA grant.
That was my
Meg,
question.
did you have a question?
Yeah, that was my question. Where is the funding gonna come for the clinical oversight
Yeah.
person?
Very similar to what we did with Wheeler Clinic. We built that into the IDEA grant. The same thing with purchasing of furnishings and materials.
That's the other question.
We have, our Wheeler program has an excellent Promethean board that's totally interactive. Just because a child's in a special program doesn't mean that they should have second-rate electronics and instructional materials. So that comes out of the grant funding. And that's really one of the things that the IDEA grant is earmarked for, is for building of new programs and looking at your district's needs.
And typically, do kids go half-day programs or full-day programs if they are in an alternate program at Brownstone? Would there be a lot of transportation costs, I guess, is the next question? Moving people back and forth every hour or two, or every 4 hours, or whatever?
We would first look to utilize Hope's Little Bus, and that's what we do with the Wheeler program right now is, if we have a child that comes a little bit later after Hope's done doing all of her secondary school runs in elementary and pre-K, then that child if the child's coming in for an alternate, for a different day or something. But we would first look to do that, and then if we need to reach out and get some more support through M&J, we would do that.
What would you imagine the max capacity of a program like this would be? And are you strictly looking to serve Portland children, or is the possibility there for the future to serve children from other districts, sort of the way that East Hampton has with the program?
Max capacity is a tough one to look at. I mean, I'm nervous about 18 students possibly being earmarked because it does. But at the same time, things settle, kids become, first of all, this program's never really meant to be an end stop for a student. Hopefully we get a child regulated and mentally and socially, emotionally healthy, and they're able to go back into their classroom, so that you have a lot of revolving door type of things for students like that. It's unlike our life skills, which is when it's students in that, they're really in that program for the duration of their educational experience. This is designed to be hopefully as temporary as could be. And sometimes we lose kids too. They have to go outplacement, or they have to go into programs like SoulNet or something like that. So sometimes kids are really too sick for us to be able to support here. But the idea is this is our most restrictive that we can be in the district, that we try before we send them on.
And I just wanted to add to that, she talked about these 17 students. Today I participated, or I observed a PPT where the behaviorist was there consulting the team and the parent. And that's happening all over the district. Right. I think that, a shout out to Ryan and his team, and most particularly Jessica, because of that large number of kindergartners that we did not anticipate, who are experiencing significant behavior issues. They are working so hard, but that's where most of our paras have gone for that one-to-one support, so that we can be more diligent in our efforts to help them specifically with their behaviors, and be right there with behavior plans, BIPs, whatever it is that we're implementing. So I've seen some significant gains, particularly at Valley View School, and I'm hopeful that that contingent of kids wouldn't necessarily go there.
So as far as to answer your question though about the max number, I think that would be something we would have to determine as an administrative team when we kind of set things up. Whether Wheeler Clinic recommends that we stay at 12 for their programming. And I'm happy to report that the CLP program at the high school is just about at capacity. We have one more student coming in, and that makes 12. So that's exciting. That's 12 kids that are getting services that might have to be somewhere else. But the idea is we would determine that based upon, the administrative team would kind of set those guidelines up. There's a lot of legwork that goes into laying the rules and the policies and everything, making sure that we have a consistent answer for all our students' needs. Okay?
Tim, did you have a question?
Yeah, you may have been into some of these when you were, I've never seen this before, so I read it while you were talking, so I probably missed some points, so I can try and put it all together. So this is a program that you and the principals will develop and run as the leadership team for this? And you won't have Wheeler involved at all unless you contract with them separately for the clinicians to provide the clinical oversight? Is that a fair?
What we're hoping to do is, instead of contracting out for clinicians and BCAs and things like that, is to
Hire your own.
to hire our own and train them.
Ask
And
them, Wheeler, to train them? Is that my?
well, especially for the clinicians, yeah. Yeah, the clinician part is, when you think about, because it's that higher level of care. We're going from a special ed program to a much more restrictive special ed program with a therapeutic goal in mind. And so that kind of oversight would be a contracted service. And it could be Wheeler. We've spoken with the Wheeler team, and it's definitely something that they could support us with. But
Programs for the lower grades as well.
yep, and that could be the route that we go. It could very easily be that we don't find the clinician that we're looking for, or we don't find the caliber of person, and that we wind up having to contract with somebody like Wheeler Clinic, and that might be the route that we go. But the benefit of building the capacity of the staff here in Portland and having that person, it's just like our BCBAs. We can continue to hire BCBAs, but we also have social workers and psychologists that can collect data and conduct a functional behavioral analysis, and let's build their capacity as well.
But so the Wheeler program here, isn't it our staff that are in there in addition to Wheeler?
Right,
patients? So
right.
we do have that capacity here.
From the educational component, the therapeutic component is completely Wheeler Clinic. So, and we're not unhappy with the service they provided at all. I mean, they've done a great job, and we're very happy with the clinicians that we have. They're very ingrained in our school, and I think a lot of our teachers see them as a resource and a support. It's just we're looking at the other problem is we always want to be thinking outside the box, because what if Wheeler doesn't have somebody?
Well, but then if you hire somebody and they leave, you leave in a worse position because they have some kind of a pool they can draw from. But if you have a person that's on board, a clinician, and they leave, then you
Right.
may have nobody.
Right.
So if you have a contract, it goes both ways.
Right,
It's
right.
tough.
And that's why I say we're not turned off to either direction,
Yeah.
but the idea is to build staff capacity, because this need in our students is not going to go away.
Oh, no, I agree. I think we need to have these services. We can't keep sending children out to outplacement. We've got to be able to meet the needs.
Mm-hmm.
If the kids have presented to the school, so we got to do it the smart way. We got to do it, that makes the most sense
Right.
operationally, certainly. So is this in the budget already?
It is.
So, but it's in the budget as what? As a Portland-run program, and there's a clinical position in there somewhere?
So it is, the positions are either funded in a grant or in our operational budget, and the support that we would need from an outside agency would be under the contract services section of her grant, of the IDE grant.
I would just love to
And
see one, like a proposal that includes the money. Like, this is the proposal, this is what we need, and this is, who wants to pick through, unfortunately, I do stuff. But who wants to pick through the whole budget document to figure out what piece of this goes to that, a little summary so we know.
I think she can add that. She's been out for a couple weeks,
Yeah,
so
no,
that's why
it would be,
we can
yeah.
add that piece to this
Mhm.
document.
Yeah, because we did that when we built the Wheeler Clinic program. We
Right.
came in with dollar
So,
amounts,
yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. But the other thing that's going to be a little messy, a little muddy, is going to be a lot of our students that would be coming into this program right now have one-to-one para support already. So it's not like we would leave those paras in the classroom and hire new paras to support in the program. They would be reallocated. Same thing with the potential of a reallocation of a special ed teacher. So there's a couple things that we have that they're messy, but we can definitely tell you what the dollar amount would be for paras.
We're trying.
I'm just saying, I got this vision of 18 individuals and 18 one-to-ones in the space of Brownstone. It sounds like it's
Right.
tight.
right, right.
It just me, 18 sounds like a big number.
Well, when you think about the ABA lab, the kids that are in the ABA lab at Valley View, it's a large number. I think it's 9 students right now, and every one of those students needs one-on-one support. But it's not like there's 9 kids and 9 adults running around in there. They really restructure how they're getting support and when they're having one-on-one and when they're part of a small group, and so similar thing would take place. Because ideally, if the program's working, we should be able to pull away the support. You know, it's not like it's the idea is to treat and help a student become whole again, and then pull away that support and have them become move back into their classroom.
Is there any intention, even eventually, to move this down into the pre-K level also? And is there any screening that can be done at the preschool level to identify children sooner than kindergarten?
We perform screenings all year long.
Right.
We already are.
The parent has to come in and
Right.
apply for the screening. So is that part of the problem with identifying kids sooner?
No, this is just parents that either didn't bring their children to screening, or when there's, for a young child, when there's no demand put on the child, the need for specialized programming isn't there, because the child just does what they need to do or what they want to do. And, and I raised my kids. There was days where I placated my child and got them what they needed because I knew they were going to outgrow it. But it's what happens then, and we go from that type of setting to, we're going to come into school for 6 hours a day, we're going to be one of 16 other kids, and all of those things is what's exacerbating the needs for our kindergartners. So
these particular 6 kindergarten children were not preschool students at Valley View, correct?
No. Because those kids were already programming for. Jessica and her team are already planning where the kids that are coming out of pre-K that have special needs, we're already planning for them. These are kids that came with other presentations.
So I understand the appeal of wanting to develop our own program. I'm curious if there's any thought yet to what the differences would be cost-wise between developing our own program versus contracting with Wheeler.
We're still really at the exploratory point in that. Just, that's why Allison is going to another district tomorrow to look at their program and ask those types of questions. In 2 weeks, we're going to go to another district and take a look at that program. So we've still got a little bit of time right now to kind of, figure out where we want to go. And we'll have that deeper conversation with Wheeler Clinic and see what they're able to provide and go from there. But yeah, because we're not going to go the cheapest route just to go the cheapest route, because it doesn't work in the end. We're gonna have to deal with problems that come out of that then. So.
And to the point that there are other districts doing other programs, would it be a consideration in creating a program here that we would look to see what is not being done someplace else, and perhaps being able to do a regional access? For instance, East Hampton does something that we need. Maybe not all our kids need East Hampton. Maybe we do something here that we can swap kids back and forth within.
Right, like a
within
different
region.
service delivery model or something like
exactly.
that. And that's why we're gathering our information, and I'm having daily conversations with my colleagues in the area as well, as far as what programs. Ideally, if we have open spots, the goal would be to be able to invite students from other districts in and tuition them and help, first of all, fill a need for another district, but also help us, program for.
And I just have to say, I'm at Valley View, and I know there's, a very hard-working group of people there, and I can see a difference in some of the kids, but it's not enough, and I know that, so congratulations on hard work, and we do need that.
And so much of it too is to have that alternate space. And Jessica just doesn't have that at Valley View right now. To have that alternate space for a child to be able to de-escalate and be able to call their own, and for as long as they need it, is so important.
Agreed.
So can I ask how you, I know Tim asked to separate out the cost estimate for the program. And I know that when we started with Wheeler Clinic, we had a contract kind of proposal of an amount that what we were going to pay to Wheeler. So is there any way that you could show us, and I know you're in the planning early stages of this, but is there any way you could show us a comparison between the two? What it would,
That's
I
our
guess-
goal, is to be able to say, you know, because I'll sit down and one of the lags with Wheeler right now is the fellow that we struck the original contract with, Mike Russo, 2 years ago. It was almost 3 years ago. We started talking with him. Has left Wheeler, and there's somebody else in his place now. So it's and when you have new leadership, things do change. So I'm continuing those conversations along both lines, using them as a true contract service and having them come in and do the whole package. And then it's nice and easy, cut and dried, it's X number of dollars. But also talking about cafeteria style, you know, pulling in what we need to pull in. So we can definitely work on getting those prices.
okay?
I just want to make a shout out to Allison, who is a very eager administrator who would love to be an administrator for this program. And I'm supporting her desire to do this and her genuine interest in going out and looking at other schools and seeing how these programs are done so that we can make that determination whether or not we can do this on our own or in part. So just a shout out to her for taking on the project.
I agree with you, Philip, because there's nothing more that these children need than to know when they walk in their building that they're welcomed. You know, you're coming to school with a lot of baggage or social emotional damage, and to walk in the building and think that, you know, somebody's rolling their eyes or going, oh, here comes that child again. You know, Allison's, she's got her arms wide open already, and that's really important. Any other questions?
I know, again, going back to our experience with Wheeler, I know that when we had to deal with the State Board of Ed in terms of our per pupil costs being lower than it was supposed to be according to their formulations, the Wheeler program helped us to kind of justify that lower cost because of the lower amount that we had to pay for outplacements. Would you be able to provide us any of that type of information in terms of if we didn't have this program and these 7 of the 18 or 17 students had to be outplaced, what would that cost?
Oh, we can easily
As
do that.
opposed to with this program?
Very similar to what we did when we set the Wheeler program. Yeah.
I think that would be
The document that we
helpful.
created when we sent it off to the state last fall, I think is what she's referring to.
Right.
We can easily do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great information.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
I mean, I have 2 clinicians for 2 of these students that we're talking about who are saying, I really think this child needs to go to a therapeutic day. And we're really, you know, we're trying to get them to the point, it's like, let us build this program here, because to ship this child off to somewhere else and then bring them back, and when they're in such a delicate spot. So, but we know what it will cost. We know what it's going to cost if they have to go spend a couple of years at Grace Webb School or something like that. So we can definitely work those numbers.
Well, I know that, and I wholeheartedly support the Wheeler program, and I think this would be a great thing for us to be able to establish in our younger grades as well. And I think that any of that type of information where we can compare what we would spend outplacing a student as opposed to having them stay here in their community is going to help to justify that.
Right.
With not only the board, but with the community.
Exactly, because it's all going to cost money, but how we can move that. And, you know, and Stephanie spoke to this year's budget and where we are right now. And unfortunately, we had to place a student out in October, and that's the $100,000 right there, because it's not, you know, it's not an inexpensive endeavor. So. All right, thank you.
So we're actually just in the summary. We just started. We better move.
I'm just still having a difficulty with
Page 3, 4, 5.
44003.
Yep.
repairs and maintenance. And I know you tried to explain the whole 80,000 thing, but even with that, we're still a negative number, which doesn't jive with the fact we're spending more than we budgeted this year. Why do we go down?
Well, we pulled, if you look on, in the notes tab, we pulled out a few pieces and put it in the Fund 11, that we had in there. So under facilities.
Under notes.
All right.
Is it under notes?
Yep. So we moved
Door replacement.
door replacement, so
Charity
throughout the
upgrade.
year, there's periodic repair, like this year, we spent about $10,000 on replacing doors and rotting and all that, so we chose to move that out, Fund 11. There's a rooftop unit, a lot of the HVAC stuff we do is, rooftop units and those types of things.
I thought that was just a reduction to get you from 6% to 4%.
Right, so we moved it to Fund 11, so we still have intent to do it, but it's moving on to a different, funding mechanism.
And that's what we explained there. We moved it to
Yeah.
Fund 11. We
But
allocated.
it doesn't really say it came out of 4403, so I guess I missed that part.
Oh, so I can put the accounts in there if that would be helpful.
That would probably have been nice, to see where it's coming out of and explain why.
Yep, so basically it's the Gildersleeve rooftop unit is 4403, the high school freezer condenser. That one, last year, one went out, this year one went out, so there's one left. We just assume that that one's gonna go out as well, so we budgeted for that. Security upgrades, throughout the schools, we've been talking about that this year. That's, 4403 that we moved, and all the door pieces. So when you add all that up, it would have exceeded the budget, and it would have exceeded where we were at, but we just had to make those choices of where to cut, and
So you think in the Fund 11, these will be a priority and get done? If Fund 11 needs exceed Fund 11 what we get?
that's what's in there right now for it.
Did I say that right?
It's a good point to make, because we have to fund Fund 11 in order to make these projects. And she reminds me of that repeatedly.
The Fund 11 comes from our end of year.
Our end of year,
Yeah,
say if
whatever.
we have anything left over. And the
Which
Board of
may-
Ed, the Board of Selectmen's $40,000
And they get,
allocation annual.
$40,000. We're pretty tight this year.
We didn't do a transfer last year.
So the Board of
We
Selectmen
didn't
gives
do
how
it.
much?
We didn't do a
40.
transfer.
40.
Yeah.
To Fund
They're
11.
How much do
40
we
plus
give?
our-
Whatever
Depending
left
on-
over.
Depending on what is that
$100.
you determine in June, you wanna put into the RNA, what you wanna put in that account. Every year, you do an annual transfer. There are two things that you transfer. We
I know
did
the
not
transfer
do
get
it
confused
this
every
past
year,
year.
so.
Right.
What's that?
I know about transfers, but I get confused every year.
We did not do it last year because our budget was in such difficult position, so.
What did we have
So
left,
there may be no
37
Fund
cents?
11 money,
$392.
other than the 40,000 from town, if they choose to.
We
give it
hope
to
there
us.
will be Fund 11 money.
I certainly do. I mean, those are areas that need to be addressed. and
Just
we need
remind
those.
everybody.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I recognized that
So,
very.
so right now in Fund 11, with the projects that we have done, and that's adding in the Valley View roof piece, we'll have $73,059 left in there. Then you add in the 40,000 from the board that we would get next year, so that would be 70, 80, 90, that'd be 110.
Yeah.
And then if we can fund any piece of that, and so that's, we've done vertical platform lift. I believe that's on the back page of my narrative of
I
what
was
we
still
did out of Fund
confused,
11.
where did the money come into this year? I mean, I know last year we ended with nothing left over.
Right.
Where did the money come from?
So we carried.
We had, yeah, we carried a
We
balance.
carry
It's
it
a
down. This is
revolving-
103,000
doesn't go to
carried
zero.
forward.
We carried 138,993.65
Forward.
from,
Oh, I'm sorry.
from previous years that we just carried it forward, didn't do as much stuff.
Oh, so this is from long, long ago.
Right.
'Cause I don't see anything in here funding that fund.
If you look in the, under facilities, it's under the capital maintenance plan, you'll see 1920, you'll see Fund 11 balance at beginning of fiscal year. It may not, you may not know exactly what's made up of that, but
It's
that's
on
just
page
knowing
33.
you had that going in to this year.
Page 33, the top row,
Yep.
30, I guess.
Sorry,
And
I'm
the
asking a
purple-
lot of
and the purple
questions,
row.
but this is near and dear to my,
No, I'm glad you pointed that out, because I missed that too.
So it's the purple, so our year right now, so what we started with was, we technically started with 138,983 plus the 41.
Comes under.
And so far, we've only done the vertical platform. We've replaced the boiler room air compressor. Finished off the Gildersleeve main office. The Learning Cafe flooring came out of there to complete the project. And then the anticipated, I have it italicized, is up in, because we haven't done anything yet with it, but is the Valley View roof replacement.
And that's,
Potentially for
we
spring.
haven't executed that yet.
But is that subtracted from the balance?
Yeah, so I put that in because we're
Yeah.
anticipating doing it, so that'll leave us with 73, 059, 52, plus the 40, 41 from the town, plus whatever we put in.
But next year, you have
214,
214,000.
771.
We only have 111-ish, so that means we're 100,000 short for what we want to do.
Where's he looking?
So,
Where you
he's
pulling
still
that
here,
from?
so 240, so
We're
we're
gonna have
budgeting
7
214 that we wanna spend,
Right.
but we're only gonna have 100 and,
10.
yeah. So, we gotta try and either put in $100,000 or we have to cut something out and not do
Right.
something. But it's just the reality of what we had to do.
Yeah.
This is what we do every year.
to
Yeah,
get
gotta
where
do
we
it.
are.
I know, I'm just saying, if we're in this budget thing now, I mean, is there an opportunity where we should be, I mean, we talk about the problems that he faces every meeting of things that come up and we don't fund all the things that need to get done, but yet at the first place, we don't have enough money.
But we have increased that line over the last 2 years,
Right?
right? Have we? Significantly.
Yes.
Our adopted budget for this year is $90,000 more, 80 some odd thousand dollars more
Well,
than
that's
it was
'cause of
the
the-
previous year.
That's because of the Oak Hill.
And it was also higher than
That's
in the
budgeted
previous year.
amount.
But this
That
also
doesn't
includes
include
all
the-
four, you gotta look at, don't
All
look at
four
the main
funds.
one, look at the Carl one. Cause that includes all
What
the
page is that?
location ones too, so it's not an aggregate. You gotta look at page 32.
Where all the funding is.
So 18-19, we had 200,000, I know we had 206, I mean, we went $6,000 this year, plus the 80 to get to 286.
Okay.
I don't know what 17-18 was. off
So
the
you
top
think
of
we're
my
gonna spend all the 286, probably, most likely.
head. Most likely.
So then
I
we're at
don't-
165
I
next year.
wanna slow down on things, but it's, that's our main, it's been held off so long for all the repairs that it's all coming down on us now.
Yeah.
The
And that's what
years
my
of-
point is trying to get ahead of some of the stuff rather than.
And that's our choice, I mean, that's your guys' choice.
Yeah.
If you wanna refund that, then we have to figure out where to take it from.
Where's our facilities review contract?
That's in there, that's in
Yeah,
the
the
grant
purchase services
line.
expenses
Yeah.
increase, that's what I figured.
It's gonna be
So-
helpful.
It will be extremely helpful.
Well, we still have the end of year option of going to the town. I mean, that was, we were told if we get in trouble as you come to the end of the year. I mean, 80, I don't count that 80,000 as any help per se. I mean, it was, you negotiated the contract, you,
I'm glad we have it though.
oh, yeah, oh, believe me, no, absolutely, yeah. But,
You're saying there's not help from the town?
yeah, well, that's how I see it at least. You know, it was nice that they did the right thing, but it's, but. Stephanie, I have a question. There's a couple of places on the spreadsheet, here on page 4, right-hand column, second section, there's a formula error there.
I think because there was no.
Because, no, yeah, it's
I was playing with it, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, do I just make it a
But
zero?
did that, I didn't do the math on that, but that didn't affect the percentage
No.
total on the bottom?
No.
It just ignored that, or I just, there's a couple on there, and I just wasn't sure if that was affect the bottom
And some of
line.
them, if you, I think it's just way where it's located, because
It's
some of
because
them
of the
come up
formula,
with
if
zero.
you don't have, number, because in this one here, there was no numbers in the previous
In the
fiscal year.
previous, yeah. I don't believe, I mean, the 4.46 it is what it is, and I actually think when I do it, I take the bottom number and divide it, I don't add up the columns.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just do it off the total.
The smart way.
Well, because I don't know what that
Right.
would do to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we were looking for that piece, we tried to look at the larger, because I wasn't gonna sit through and say, oh, we're gonna cut this little tiny thing here and this little tiny, you have to go for the big numbers to get to where
Yeah.
you have to be, and that's the hard part. And it's the reality of things.
Maybe you said it at the beginning, I missed it, when you were going through the whole deck. When we had the initial budget of Dr. O'Reilly, and he cut it to 400,000, what was the goal of cutting it? Was there some kind of, something driving you to cut it? Was there a number you were trying to get at?
No. Well, I actually wanted to get into a 3, to be honest with you, but we stopped because we were getting too deep into the very important instructional pieces that are here. So that's a great question. What drives us? Well, the 6 years of experience in Portland, knowing that it is a challenge to get a 4% budget approved, and let's understand that that has been historically a challenge. A budget in excess of 4% is going to be a very difficult budget to get approved through the Board of Selectmen and the town. And let's not kid ourselves. So, and I don't know where this board would make those cuts, but I have to give you what I think is the best estimate of what I project, and have to make the very critical decisions of saying, okay, Chris, you can't have an extra PE teacher or a part-time, and I have to pull it back for that reason. And that's why, you see some of them, you don't see all of the things that we say, you know what, we can't do it. It's already a big budget.
Well, I think after last year's failure and then the town rallying around the support, I'm hoping we can do the similar this year, because we gotta realize that if you look at the salaries and benefits, it's 80% of our budget, and contractually, there's 2 or 3% built into that, so you've gotta start from there, and if you bring the percentage down, it's gotta come from something else. I mean, so that's what we do every year, is we end up cutting other things to pay for the stuff that we can't change. And then, so maybe this is the year where we have to put a 4.5% and stick with a 4.5%, and the town lives with it. The residents vote for it,
I could find this out if I went home and dug through some papers, but at the end of the day last year, after the 2 consecutive cuts, it was 286,000, I think is the number that sticks in my head. What was our percentage increase? Coming off of 0 the year before, we went into
2 point something.
It was 2 something.
It was-
So it was 2. So we basically went for 2 years with 1% a year.
Yes,
Literally.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So,
which is actually a negative budget, because the increased cost of everything means that we were adopting to spend less money than
Yeah.
we needed.
And this budget is reinstating a lot the things we had
It
to cut,
is,
so it's
yeah.
not even addressing other things.
personally, when I saw the 4.46, 46?
4.46.
Somehow I got 4.5 stuck in my head. I kind of yeah, it's a lot, and you gotta, but I think it's up to this board to sell it and explain.
Yep.
Because you're coming off of 2 years with a 0 and a, 2 point, whatever, and that's a tough position. We're in the hole, we're digging out of a hole.
And we also have the cost of increased gas, which was unexpected. I mean, we have some things that we can't control, and that's the other part of it, and we don't know what the state will give us.
Let me also draw your attention to the note that Stephanie made in one of the cuts to lower it. And it's a very tentative cut to lower it to 4.46, and that is the health insurance.
Yep, I saw that note.
We don't know what that number will be. This current year was 9.99%.
I saw that.
We're hopeful that it will come in a bit less. But that could change the budget between now and the end of your approval process.
When do we usually get that number?
Very shortly, after the first of the year. You haven't
Open
Yeah, no, I haven't
enrollment
got
is May
anything yet.
1st.
They were 25, which they always say they provide, and it always ends up coming back.
So, would you like to continue?
Sure.
We
Okay.
could blast through.
All right, so we're gonna go, location budget is your, as she said, your
So did they have
principal
any
budgets.
questions on this? Did we get through all of the, are you guys good with the
I assume they were.
budget summary?
We're blasting. All right, so the per pupil allotment, she mentioned that she had increased it by $5. You know, one of the places that we keep robbing each year is our per pupil allotment, so we wanted to make up a little bit here. And it's only a little bit. It's not a lot of money.
No, it's a cheeseburger.
And we have to renegotiate the copier leases too, so we anticipate probably about a 8 to 10% increase, which I accounted for in here, but going into that.
I mean, we should be copying less in this day and age with electronics. I mean, my copiers at work are hardly ever used anymore. They just sit there. Maybe we need to start cutting drastically back on copiers.
Education is different though, and workbooks are expensive, and a lot of times people are using block line masters, and that's where the copies come in.
Do the copiers here serve as printers as well? Are they,
Yes.
so you can route to the,
We've consolidated in the last 6 years on a lot of our printers.
right?
So they go to the copier.
Yeah.
Even in the central office, they go to the copier.
Because you need less standalone printers. when you
Right.
have-
Oh, there's no standalone printers, I think. Very few.
All right. Student services. Next section. I always go right to the lovely colorful chart that both Charles and Don complete, and it breaks it down. It shows you the specific costs of our outplaced students, shows you the tuition costs, shows you our other contracted services. Dawn, is there anything you want to draw their attention to on this?
No, it's very similar to last year, there's not a lot of change other than the cost for the special program.
The idea grant, that's what you were saying could possibly be used to help pay for a clinician, is that right? It's my own, I just don't know how that, is that, the amount we're eligible to get from that, is that based on a percentage of what we spend, or only certain items?
Yeah, it's a predetermined amount.
Just a
Yeah.
predetermined, so it doesn't matter if we spend more.
When I apply for it every year, I start with what we had last year,
Yeah.
and then if they're going to allocate more, it just gets added on. But it's not it's maybe a 1, 2,
So it's not like a
3%.
need base, like what we really need.
It's not student pupil generated.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I can't even pretend to remember what the algorithm is and how to do that. It's complex.
Yeah.
But if you look down on the bottom left corner, it is the categories that we use.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, yeah. Yeah, this is a nice chart.
Any questions about special services? Student services, I mean, all right, let's go to district programming. Charles has also created that colorful chart for his curriculum and technology
Oh,
services.
just, can we go back
Yeah.
one,
Yep,
just to page 20?
20.
Yeah, just, that was, I don't know, we skipped that section. didn't we?
Oh, we did, you're right.
Student services.
Yeah.
Just, that's the place where we had seen the information about softball. It's the third paragraph.
Yep.
Interscholastic sports. The way it's worded, I'm not sure. It says the last line is funding remains the same for FY 2021 with the only addition of adding back in middle school softball. which
Well,
was
then
cut.
that might be what was that about?
So it's,
then?
it's hard to understand from that, if the funding is the same from 2019-20, and we added in the softball, or it's the same plus the amount to
So
add
the only
back in.
difference in athletics is 1,776, so I have to go back and see if that was the
That could
amount
be
that
the
was the
softball.
middle school softball, which I'm
Sounds
pretty
right.
sure it was, and that's why I think I put that in there.
Yeah.
So I think that answers the question.
Okay.
I'll go back and
Plus
check.
the coaching, right,
Correct.
Plus the stipend, yeah.
Yeah.
which was
Uh,
7,000.
No.
Well, the stipends are set for a 3-year term, so I think at the time we just didn't include it, but the stipends, I think, were just all reinstated. Again, I'll check
Yeah.
that one as well. But I believe these are like the supplies and the fees and everything for the,
Oh.
I'll check. But I know that that number stood out to me, and I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Okay, sorry.
All right, any other questions about those?
Did you get an answer about whether, was it just reinstated because everything was being reinstated from the last year's budget, or was it reinstated because we know that there's desire
That's the
for
question
girls?
I know you want to
That's the,
answer.
yeah,
Got it.
thank
Alright.
you for.
Yep.
Yep,
Because there isn't, do we need it in there?
Right.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, district-wide programming again. Charles's curriculum and technology.
The technology services line, it's an increase of 65,000. Does that line item include hardware as well? Is that it?
Well, it looks like that's a big piece of that.
Technology is the
Let's
full
see.
259,805. 259,805, so it's an increase of 65,220.
Yeah, I mean, I just was looking, I know we're gonna do Chromebooks, which is 67,000. We'll get back on track with, so I'm just curious if that's where that 65,000 is, or.
Hardware 73014, correct. But we took, because we cut, so it was projected to do 10 smart boards, and so the smart boards and the projectors are cut in half from what was put in, so that's cut in half. Last year we funded, it was the E-rate portion, I believe, in there, so I'd have to go back and look and see what made up that.
Yeah, I'm just curious, I see here there is a hardware line that has 49,000 increase.
Yep, so it was 72,000 last year, which I believe was just the E-rate 32,000 and the Chromebooks.
Because we didn't do Chromebooks we didn't have them in 5th grade last year.
We did, we had a small amount.
Oh, did we have?
We cut
Oh, they
it.
just used the ones that were out of warranty.
Right, I think the Chromebooks were cut to 40,000 and the E-rate was 32,000 to get to the 72,000. And then we added in smart boards, projectors, UPS devices, and the Project Lead the Way lab, that's all in the replacement cycle to get to 121,500.
I'm sorry, where are you seeing that number, 121,500?
Read it.
That's the 2021, that's how you get the difference of the 49,500. The 49,500 is the increase, going from the 72 to the 121,500. Flip up. Look on 73014.
Thank you. Okay, yep, okay, yeah, okay. I was looking and I got lost.
It's a lot of numbers.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's where that was.
So that, if we,
So, okay, so that's where the Chromebooks are.
Yes.
Is in there. What's the 65,220 for the 33% increase in technology services?
so that's just the overall budget. So, I mean,
So 49.5 of that is the hardware.
yeah, so,
So
oh, yeah.
this here is a breakdown of what you're presenting on the prior page?
Yes. So this, because it's a larger piece of it, we like to show that portion of it. So we went up 7 in purchase services, but down 2,500 in professional development, down 2,500 in
Yep.
travel, and that's how you get to the 65,220.
Gotcha. The light bulb goes off.
All right.
Thank you. Under the, are we on 27 yet?
On page 27?
Yeah. I skipped ahead. Does the Project Lead the Way lab, $40,000 cost for hardware, is that the replacement of computers?
Yes.
Because I think I read somewhere in
Desktops.
the narrative, some desktops that they need for those.
They're more specialized computers because of the work that they do.
Well, they're running the 3D printers and whatnot. How many do we end up with in that?
For 6 Project Lead the Way labs, we replaced one with a grant that we wrote this year, so this would be the second one. And then the replacement cycle calls for one each year.
Oh, okay.
Charles has done his best to really follow that cycle that you've approved.
Yeah, no, that's
So,
a great,
which is
I'm
great.
glad we asked for that, because I'll tell you, you got a plan, try and follow it. If you don't have it, then that's where you get behind the 8 ball.
Any other questions about that particular?
Just curious on a couple of things here. I didn't realize we spent $100,000 on Board of Education Services. Page 25.
Where's that?
Page 25, in the middle.
We're worth it, Dave.
I don't have my breakdown of I'm just gonna bring it too. It's a lot of dues and fees that we actually pay for some subscriptions.
It's your
So we have to
legal,
pay
your,
for CABE and
your
stuff like
legal
that.
fees,
Yeah.
your legal
CABE
fees,
is
your
$9,000,
negotiation fees, your
9,500.
legal fees. We can break that down for you if you want.
Yeah,
I'd be
probably
just
I
curious.
almost brought it with me and didn't.
The bulk of it is
Negotiation
negotiation and legal fees.
different.
Policies.
Yep, all
True,
those
that's a
are
separate
asset
line.
X two,
Not my-
all
yeah.
that is all paid for out
That
of
goes
there,
the same
school
place.
messenger, the food, the Heartland,
I guess the same goes for the building administration too. I'm just curious about that.
that's the school locations and how they allocate their funding. So that's their 241 account, so that's their
That's just all 5 schools added up.
combined.
Yeah, but it's not like cleaning supplies that goes on maintenance. It's not like salaries. It's not, it's just, it says it's just copiers, postage and supplies.
No, but if you look at their own,
Each school has a certain amount that they put towards it. The high school has, a larger amount that goes towards that. If you look at location, Jill show,
are each of these locations what makes up that, the building administration? That's what he's asking.
no, that's, it's 241 account, but this is broken up by objects, so it's all split up
Mostly
between.
general supplies. That's
It's
90%
supplies,
of it.
it's subscriptions, it's dues and fees, what else is in the administration, the 241? Professional development,
college board, that eats a lot of that.
That's big.
So there's a further breakdown of those categories if we wanted to see it?
yes. If you would like.
We have it on our notes.
Okay.
Can we move to we talked about facilities, didn't we? Can we move beyond that to, and any questions about statistical data?
I have a question
I
about
want to tell you that
statistical data.
the birth total, I have the number, and I thought it was in here, and I forgot it, but I think it's 91 births
Yeah, I saw it
for
someplace.
2019.
It's in here someplace.
It's on the back.
Yeah, that's big.
2019 wasn't in here, but.
I think he's talking about 2019.
Yeah, the
2019.
last
Oh.
one,
We don't
the
have
last
the- we have
piece.
91.
See, it does it, I always have them do it after June 30th and then after December 31st. And we have it, it didn't get put in here, and I think it's 91. But maybe
That's
a
good.
little bit, it's high, it's higher,
It's going up.
So I had a question about the enrollment
yeah.
numbers. So 5th grade currently has 92 kids, is that correct?
Yeah.
And next year it's gonna be 104. Anticipated. 4th grade this year is 104. Alright.
And we're putting back in the 5th grade position.
Yeah. Makes sense?
Yeah, I want to be, along those lines, if you go back to the K-1,
115.
you know, the 115 obviously are 6 sections. Do we gamble and make 5 sections of kindergarten and move the kindergarten teacher to grade 1? And based on my error last year, I felt like I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go into this with going back to our 6 sections of each. Also because, and it's not a scientific approach, but the percentage of increase over the birth rate every year has to be applied. So if you look at the birth rates, I used to think that looking at the birth rates would give you a really solid number, but it doesn't, because it's been all over the place. But that's why we projected for 2013 that we were going to have a need for fewer teachers. Right.
Also, determination of open choice seats for kindergarten.
Right, but we're pretty consistent on that, and we really, I play the numbers based on what we have from Portland residents. So I think what I was thinking was that your 73 births are very close to the 75 births the year before, and so we have 30 some odd more kids than births, so I'm assuming that we're gonna need 6 sections, and that's why I made that one. All right?
2014 are the current case, the 96. So then 75 would be next year. My son's in
You're right,
kindergarten.
you're
he's
right,
14.
you're right. But it still gets us over the 100 number, which would be your, you know,
Need for them.
your need for an additional one.
I have I guess semi-philosophical question or inquiry as to what this net current expenditure per pupil by DRG really tells anybody, but we don't need to discuss it in relation to our budget. That can be for another day.
But I like to make the point.
I understand, but
Our cost per
what did it
pupil
really
is
mean?
a lot less.
Yes.
It's below the state average and below our well below our DERG average
Yep.
for how much a town spends per pupil. That's a real number.
Okay.
And the Board of Selectmen loved that I had that included in the town hearing last year, so that they understood how, based on our performance as a district, and how well we are performing, and how low our cost per pupil is by town. So it's increased.
So-
I mean, last year was 15.6, 15.4, so it's increased. But everybody else says it, well,
How is it determined what DRG your town is in? What is that? What is it?
It's a state determination, and it has to do with each town's financial information.
And population or no?
No.
Doesn't have anything to do with population?
I don't know
Per
that.
capita.
There's a
income.
document that explains it that I saw. It talks about poverty level and, you know, median average.
Rate of
Salaries.
education of
Yeah.
the people in town. But it's basically socioeconomic.
So, we're in the same DRG as a town,
Mm-hmm.
Sharon, that their DRG is $36,334 per
That's
pupil.
my town.
So,
And the reason it's that way is we have 104 kids in our K-8 school. So,
and then is it regional for,
and it's, well, the Sharon, this is not the regional budget, and this
That's
over
just
that is
the
a
elementary.
regional budget.
yeah.
District 1 is,
Hmm.
all of these larger, many of them are
Hmm.
from my area, and
So, I don't know, just curious as to, aside from, I understand it's important to show for what we spend per pupil, our kids get a great education,
Yes.
economically.
do we know, does this figure for Portland or Albany schools, does that include everything that they spend, even the grant money that we get, or open choice funding and all, you know? So say we spend 12 million, but we get another 2 million in grants and open choice and whatever.
You're quizzing me on this, 'cause this was the report I just did, it was my first time doing it, and I have to go back and look, and I don't
like I
think
said,
grant stuff, I
That's
don't
what
think
my
grant stuff is
thought
including in
was,
it,
is
it's
that
just
we-
our regular.
But
I think
all
of
the
the-
school systems report it the same way, so
Yeah,
it's
it's all the
not like
same.
we're any different.
Nope.
than everybody else.
Like I said,
Speaking of
that's-
grants, do you wanna go to 8.3? Do you have any questions about those?
Do you anywhere put where you estimate for next year? Do you think it's going up or down?
No,
We're still
because I don't
this year.
control it.
Right.
I didn't know Title I was gonna increase to 85, and I hopefully it's gonna stay at 85 and not go back to 44 that it was last year.
Right.
Everything else has been pretty consistent.
The IDEA is usually very consistent unless we're going through tough economic times. In fact, we usually get a small increase each year. But
Any news on what's going on with the excess cost grants?
she said she can update you.
Usually, last year, we got the document on January 21st, so hopefully we'll get that by the end of the month.
Is there any correlation between what we get for excess cost grants and the state of the state budget in terms of if there's a deficit or
That's a dog. I know it's based off of a calculation that we've already assigned, so it takes the total cost, you subtract out this
Yep.
number based off our net cost per pupil, and then whatever's left from that, I think the state factor of it is what the percentage we get reimbursed. So Dawn, your budget's at 70%, sometimes it could be higher, sometimes it
Sometimes
could be
it'll
less.
be lower based on the economic.
So that's where that
state,
piece comes
Yep.
in.
Or
Okay.
the total number of students
Mhm.
that qualify statewide.
Right, Dawn?
I'm sorry, I got.
Yeah.
I got a
There's a
question.
lot going on.
The percentage reimbursement we get is based off of the state of the economy and the state and all, like, that's 70%. We always budget 70, but it could be higher, it could be
Yes.
lower.
Yes, the state sets that reimbursement rate.
Our threshold is determined, that won't change.
okay.
It's
And
just
that comes
a,
off of our teacher cost.
right. And our threshold did go up. We were 67 and change last year, and we're up at 70 now.
Which isn't good to go up.
Say that again.
It isn't good to go up.
Yeah.
It's more that we're responsible for.
All right, we will continue next week.
If you have any questions,
Any additional questions, send them to us. All right.
Can I ask that members, if they are sending any questions, that they include all board members in the emails, just so everybody gets the benefit of looking at other people's questions
No
and.
redundancy.
Is
And,
that okay to do to all, I mean, but we can't all communicate back though.
no, but
No
if there's a
communication
question
back.
that's gonna be
Yeah.
forwarded to Philip, if we all got it, then that may spur other questions or have, other members think about, come up with other things, that's all.
While we're on budget, Dave, you had asked about the long-range capital talking, it's not on this memo here that we were handed out, but it's on the memo on here, on our Dropbox.
Okay.
Oh, it is?
It is, because I knew I had seen it, and I looked on here and it's not here. Susan sent, this one here is from Tom Robinson, this one was sent from Susan
Okay.
Bransfield, and it says long-range capital is gonna be done on March 24th, the same day that the Board of Education. So I don't know if that's different than what Tom said or why, but.
Well, I thought, were you talking about when we go make our pitch to long-range capital while they're
Correct.
putting their budget together? Cause that's
There's a
when they're
commission
gonna,
that we go to.
Right, that's different than
Yeah.
It's the
presenting.
Long-Range Capital Commission.
right,
That's different.
Oh, okay, so the commission
Yeah.
versus.
That's what I'm talking
Right.
about.
Oh, okay.
That's what he's talking
Oh,
about.
I always thought it was when they do.
We do it in the conference room downstairs, and it's,
Oh.
we go over the list with Carl and
Maybe they have
Susan's
those
appointed
speeches.
capital commission.
But I don't think we would have a stake in being for the long-range capital for the budget meetings too, would we?
oh, yeah,
Since
Yeah.
we've got so much.
so we make our pitch to the commission and then they do what they do. And then that's what goes to the board
Yeah.
of selectmen, so.
Okay. All right.
Old business, policy 4112.6. Certified, non-certified personnel records, second reading.
I don't think there were any issues, so
I make a motion that we accept policy 4112.6, certified, non-certified personnel records. We accept it as presented.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Yes. Okay, superintendent of school search is on, just so we can remind everyone, we have a special public meeting tomorrow, January 8th at 7 p.m. Our consultant, Dr. Arardi, will be here to talk about his findings based upon the community meetings that he's held, the input from staff and administration. That's gonna help to guide us with our search as we narrow down our choices over this next month and move forward on that. So I invite you all to come back tomorrow at 7. It's gonna be a fairly short meeting, maybe a half hour, 40 minutes, so you can learn more about what's gonna be guiding us in our search. Any members have anything they wanna add on that issue? No? Okay, committee reports? Do we need to review committee assignments? I think we did that last time. Curriculum.
I attended my first meeting last month, next one tomorrow. It was very interesting hearing from the various department heads about usage of technology, who uses smart boards, who doesn't, possibly shuffling some of them around the school, especially in the high school, which could save districts some money. Talking about reallocating, or not reallocating, but changing where in the budget professional development is notated, so interesting and looking forward to tomorrow.
Thank you. Policy.
We will not meet until after the budget, so our first meeting will be the first week of February, our
Okay.
first meeting in February.
Personnel, we don't really have anything going on at this point, aside from our superintendent search, which isn't really the personnel subcommittee, but I think we have a little lull in contract issues, so that's good. Buildings and grounds,
There was no meeting.
we haven't met.
no meeting, okay. Conservation and Renewable Task Force,
Thursday,
Meeting
Thursday.
Thursday,
all right, so we can hear about that
3:30.
3:30.
Yeah.
next time. Rec liaison,
I think I have to get a letter from the board to appoint me. I thought I saw an email
You
or
do.
something. So I have to have my name submitted. I'll go see Meg tomorrow and take care of that.
I'll make a note of
Alright.
it.
You could, at the same time, you do me as alternate, so.
As an
we'll switch
alternate, so
meetings.
right,
I
exactly.
can forward you any emails I get
Oh,
for
good.
now, yeah, I
Oh,
hadn't thought
perfect.
about that.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance. The holiday really got away from me.
okay. Board of Selectmen, Nothing?
significant.
okay. Audience of citizens, is there anyone at this point that would like to address the board? Come on up. I don't know, if you were here at the beginning of the meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
You were?
Yes. My
I
name
won't
is
repeat
Mia
what you
Hawk,
said.
and I'm at 61 Bartlett Street. I just wanted to to give an observation that I've been noticing there is a pretty strong campaign through some of our community websites, the Portland Facebook and things that are certainly not overseen by anyone on the board with information about how others perceive the budget being spent and things like that. And I'm wondering, in this current budget cycle, Dave had mentioned putting out this budget, it's but it is a 4% increase, and understanding that our price per pupil is very low. You're running a really lean budget currently, and doing really fantastic things with that budget. That there might be additional efforts put forth in some of the social media platforms and campaigns to really put that information out to our community. I think, unfortunately, much of our community is getting their information from these social media platforms, and they're not necessarily the most well-informed. I think sometimes it puts some of our board members and our community in position to sort of engage in battles through Facebook and things like that, that we certainly probably don't want to be doing, but if there might be an effort to utilize some of the advertising platforms to get this out to the community now and early. Seeing our community rally behind the budget last year was really fantastic, and I think that might highlight that not everyone is fully aware. So, thank you all, and thank you for your good work.
Thank you. Okay, any other, Board of Ed member comments, if there's no one else in the public? Okay. Board of Ed comments?
I'll start. Last month, Megan, Lauren, and I attended a CABE workshop, day-long CABE workshop, which was fantastic. And during lunch, we ended up in conversation with some board members from other districts. And I can't remember who they were, where they were from, but it was a really good conversation about how they incorporate, be really positive, I mean, I think it's a win-win in a lot of different ways. Bringing our students, welcoming our students into our meetings, acknowledging achievements, maybe giving an opportunity for short performances from some of our different performing groups. But I think it'd be great for us to see some of them in action. And I would love to see us try and develop a 5-minute model of student acknowledgement for our meetings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Just a couple little things. As I heard someone speak tonight about engagement regarding the budget process from last year, and I think it would be really important that we get more community involvement to support our budget. Dr. O'Reilly mentioned that we don't typically adopt budgets over a 4% threshold, and that's become sort of standard, and I think we saw last year a lot of community complacency and then reinvigoration around supporting the school. So I would like to see, since my time on the board is drawing short, that we really get more community involvement in supporting the budget. And then to piggyback on what Laurel was just talking about, that's a wonderful idea. I was going to mention, I happened to see a video that was produced about the town tech program that highlighted some of the really great stuff that some of our, it's a wonderful program, but students talking about what a positive experience that is and what a draw that is for kids to be here, especially because of the engagement piece with some of our community folks who are, they're not technically teachers, but that are teaching as part of that. So the more that we can get out and publicize some of those efforts, I think that'll dovetail nicely with the support that we need from this community to really have our schools be the best they can be for our students.
We could get that video.
Great.
It's very neat. It's very good.
Did you see it yesterday?
I saw it about an hour before I came here.
Oh, you did? Okay, great.
Any other comments? No? Okay, next we have an executive session.
So I move that we go into executive session and we invite Dr. O'Reilly to join us. It is now 9:09.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Okay.
Did you say what purpose it was for?
Yeah, for the purpose of transportation